Are you convinced that something must be wrong with you because you desperately want to do things to improve your health, but yet you have not been able to stick with any changes? Or maybe you've been told that you need to make changes for your health, or you want to reduce your risk for chronic disease, or just feel better day to day. So you try and try and try to eat better, or move more, or stress less. But no matter how much you care or how hard you try, you just cannot seem to stick with it. If this is you, first, please stop beating yourself up over this. You are not crazy, you are not lazy, and there is nothing wrong with you. In fact, you are quite normal. Like so many people who want to change, you are likely relying on something that has pretty much been proven to be highly unreliable and not the way that you will achieve the lasting behavior change needed to improve your health. And that fickle thing is motivation. I have worked in health and wellness for decades as a registered nurse, a health educator, and a health coach. And I have seen the same struggle in hundreds of people who are trying to improve their health. They want to make changes and they mean to, but they keep getting stuck in the same cycle of false starts and frustration. And a lot of that comes down to one big misunderstanding: the belief that motivation is the key to change. It is not. It does play a role, but it should not be the only thing that you rely on to fuel behavior change. In this video, I'm going to explain why motivation is not the reliable change agent that we have all been led to believe that it is, why it fades, how it fails, and what actually works instead. You will learn a smarter, more realistic approach to behavior change, one that fits your real life and finally helps you to follow through. Let's start by getting clear on what motivation actually is. Motivation is that internal drive that compels you to act. It is the energy behind a thought: I really need to start eating better, or I want to start walking after dinner. It's that spark that you feel when you're inspired by a podcast or a lab result or a tough conversation with your doctor, when you feel like you need to change. It is what gets things going, and that spark can feel very powerful at first. But the problem is that motivation is based on emotions and feelings, which are inherently inconsistent and they fluctuate. Motivation depends on things like your mood, your energy level, your stress, your sleep, your hormones, and even things like how much clutter is around you. And because of that, motivation is unreliable and unpredictable. And if motivation is the only thing that you are relying on to drive your healthy habits, then you are not setting yourself up for success. Too much motivation can actually backfire sometimes because it causes us to plan all these big changes, but often those big changes are not sustainable. Early in my wellness career, I used to think that the key was just to keep people motivated. I would share tips, quotes, and success stories to try to keep the momentum going. But over time, I started to notice that no matter how much people really cared or how much they really wanted to get healthier, they still struggled to stick with it. And this is why I started digging deeper. I wanted to understand this better, not just to help my clients, but also to help myself. Because even though I was teaching these principles, I was still struggling to consistently stick with some of the healthy habits that I knew were so important. And what I found out that it is not about desire or knowledge or willpower. The real issue is because people often think motivation will carry them through, but it most often cannot. Because even the most well-intentioned person will have days when motivation simply is not there. Now, I know there are some people who are wired to be more disciplined or more consistent. Yes, these people do exist, and I am very jealous of them. But they are not the standard, they are the exception. Unfortunately, though, they are often held up as the gold standard for what everyone else should be able to do. and they are often idolized in the health and wellness world. And this ends up making the rest of us feel like we are just not trying hard enough. But we are trying hard enough. That is not the problem. The real problem is that most of us are trying to use motivation as if it was a long-term fuel source, when really, while it is great for getting started, it is not enough to keep us going. And it does not take much to knock motivation down. It can just take a bad night's sleep or a stressful day at work or really any change in routine. Even things like decision fatigue or running behind in the morning can be enough to knock your motivation off course. Sometimes we don't even know that it is gone, but poof, there it goes. And once it is gone, if that is the only thing that you were counting on to drive your big, ambitious, healthy changes, everything stalls. That is not a personal failure. As I discovered, it is a predictable outcome. And it is one of the biggest reasons that people fall into the cycle of starting strong and then losing steam. Because motivation might get you moving, but it simply cannot carry you through all the ups and downs of daily life. And if that wasn't enough, there is often something else working against us called competing motivations. So, for example, you might be highly motivated to cut back on sugar because you know how damaging it is to your health. But at the very same time, you might also have a deeper motivation to unwind at night with a bowl of ice cream because that is your long-standing source of comfort. And when you are tired or stressed or just trying to make it through the day, the motivation tied to immediate reward, comfort, relief, or pleasure is almost always going to win. And what makes this even trickier is that we are not always aware of these motivations that are competing. We assume that we are just lacking willpower, but really, our brains are just weighing different desires and often defaulting to what feels easiest or most emotionally satisfying in that moment. And one more reason that motivation often breaks down is because you are aiming for abstract aspirations like getting healthier or reducing my risk or taking better care of myself. These are all admirable goals, but they are not clear behaviors. Motivation towards an abstraction often feels inspiring in the moment, but it does not translate into action without something more tangible attached to it. So you end up staying stuck. You know what you should do and really want to do, but you haven't been taught how to design your behavior in a way that actually fits into your real life and make those abstract goals achievable. Instead, you keep trying to push forward with willpower and motivation, and then feel defeated when it inevitably fades. But there is a better way, and now I will be showing you what actually works, especially if you have struggled to follow through in the past. So if motivation is not the key to lasting change, then what is? First, you need to understand the difference between aspirations, outcomes, and behaviors, what each is, and its role in habit change. There is a big difference between the three. Aspirations are those big picture hopes, things like I want to live healthier, or I want to lose weight, or I want to reduce my risk of chronic disease. These are powerful and motivating, but they are also very broad. You can't take direct action on them. They give you direction, but they don't give you the steps. Then you have outcomes. These are broad strategies or the evidence-based shifts that move you toward that aspiration. These are the kind of things that I usually talk about on this channel. Things like eating more vegetables, moving more, managing stress, sleeping better. These are science-backed strategies that improve health and lower risk for many chronic conditions. They are a vital piece of the health puzzle. But still, they are quite broad and not really specific enough on their own. Because again, you usually can't really do an outcome. It is something that you want to achieve, but not really an action plan. You can't just decide to eat more vegetables and expect that to stick unless you have figured out what that looks like in your daily life. That is where behaviors come in. Behaviors are specific, repeatable actions. They are the part of the process that actually creates the change. I don't talk a lot about specific behaviors on this channel because they are incredibly individualized. What works well for one person might not make any sense for someone else. The right behavior is the one that fits into your life and feels doable for you. This is the part where people usually make one of two mistakes. Either they aim too big and jump straight into something like, I'm going to cook every meal from scratch, or something like, I'll start walking an hour every day, or they fall back into the vague habit trap and don't give themselves a structure to make the new behavior easily repeatable. This is why I encourage people to take a little time to brainstorm. Once you have identified the broader outcome, like improving your diet or moving your body more or getting better sleep, take 10 or 15 minutes and write down all the possible ways that you can turn that outcome into a behavior. Don't overthink it too much. Just jot down anything that comes to mind. The goal is not to find the perfect behavior yet. It is just to open up some options. Because once you have a range of possibilities, then you can start choosing what actually works for you. Next, from your list, choose one specific behavior that moves you toward your outcome and that fits into your real life and that you actually really want to do. Not what you should do, not what some ideal version of you possibly could do, but what you can picture yourself doing starting now, even on a stressful day, even when your energy is low. And yes, it might feel small, but that is the point. You want to make the behavior so doable that you will succeed with it early on, because early success matters. Every time you follow through, your brain gets the message, I can do this. And that is how you start building momentum. And when you do actually follow through and do that new small behavior, even just once, take the time to pause and celebrate it. Let yourself feel good about it, even for a second. Allow yourself to feel that glow of success, because that is what helps your brain wire that behavior in. That is what makes it feel like it is something worth repeating. Small wins teach your brain that this is doable and that success is possible. And that is how you start building the habits that actually lead to change. Most lifestyle-related diseases, so things like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, and even some forms of dementia, are rooted in daily behaviors. That means that if you can develop the right behaviors and sustain them, you can lower your risk for these diseases. And in many cases, you can even reverse them. But it all starts with actually being able to do the behavior. You see all these grand recommendations all the time. Eat a certain way, move a certain amount, manage your stress, and they are all important. They do offer guidance, but they mean nothing if you can't consistently perform the actions that lead there. If a habit does not fit into your real life, it will not last, no matter how good the science behind it is. To help you better understand how to move from aspiration to outcome to behavior, I want to walk you through what that actually looks like in real life. So let's say your aspiration is to improve your heart health. That's a great start, but even that is a little abstract. So let's take it one step further and make it personal. What are your deeper reasons? Maybe your father died of a heart attack at 48, and that has stayed with you. And now your deeper aspiration isn't just about lowering cholesterol, it's about breaking that pattern and living longer than he did. Or you want to stay healthy, active, and alive for your family. That is your real reason why. From there, you want to start thinking about outcomes. These are the broader science-backed strategies that will help you move toward that aspiration. So maybe you've watched one of my videos or you've read about how eating more vegetables consistently lowers your risk of heart disease. So you choose that as one of your outcomes, increase vegetable intake. But that is still not a behavior. You can't just tell yourself to eat more vegetables and expect that it will happen unless you decide exactly how that will look in your life. So now it is time to turn that outcome into an action. This is where you pause to brainstorm. Set a timer for 5 to 10 minutes and write down every possible way that you could make eating more vegetables a reality. Maybe you think about roasting vegetables on the weekend for meal prep, or tossing spinach into your morning eggs, or microwaving frozen broccoli. Maybe it's buying some pre-cut vegetables for snacks, or adding a side salad to your dinner every night. Once you have got your list, ask yourself, what on here am I most likely to do? Not what sounds like the healthiest, not what feels like the right thing to do or what you saw someone else do on Instagram. Choose something that you will easily follow through on. Let's say microwaving a bag of frozen broccoli and adding a little olive oil and sea salt feels manageable. It is easy and it fits into your routine. It is something that you think you can do even on your busiest days. That becomes your new behavior. And if none of the ideas on your list feel doable, it means you need to go smaller. Shrink the behavior until it feels ridiculously doable. Maybe your first step is just buying the frozen vegetables so that you have them in your freezer. That counts because that is a behavior that you can do. And when you do that behavior, when you actually follow through, even just once, I want you to celebrate it. I'm not talking about throwing a party. Just pause and recognize that moment. Let yourself feel that sense of success. Yes, I did it. Because that is what tells your brain that this is something that is worth repeating. This is how real change starts. Not with a huge transformation, not with a perfect plan, but with one small, specific behavior that fits into your life and an internal message that says, I can do this. We are surrounded by recommendations. Eat this, move that way, get more sleep, reduce your stress. And those things do matter. They are based on solid science. But they don't matter if you can't consistently perform the actions that lead there. If a habit does not fit into your real life, it will not last, no matter how motivated you are to get started or how much you care. The method that I have shared in this video is a flexible, realistic, science-backed way to approach change and will work even if you have struggled in the past to keep momentum going. It gives you a way to take a broad goal and break it down into an outcome, then into a behavior that you can actually do. Something that is small enough to start, but meaningful enough to make a difference. And from there, you can begin to grow a protective wall of habits. Because behavior science tells us that small successes will breed more success. This approach is also at the heart of a program that I am currently building called Wellness by Design. I want to help as many people as possible, so there's going to be a low-cost membership program designed to help you build healthier habits. Inside the membership, we will go into more detail on creating sustainable change using a framework just like the one you've learned here today. And it will include support to help you design your behaviors so that you can stick with them. This will include regular calls where you can get guidance, ask questions, and stay connected to the process. Right now, I am still actively developing this program and doing research to make sure that it is something that people truly want and need. So if this kind of support sounds helpful to you, signing up for the waitlist not only keeps you in the loop, but it will also help me gauge interest and shape the program based on what you are looking for. So you'll find a link to sign up on the waitlist in the video description below. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel for more content on how to live a healthier, longer life. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, please take good care of yourself.